My son-in-law invaded my villa with 15 friends, so I called the police. I had just moved into my dream home on the ocean front when the phone rang. It was my son-in-law, his voice sharp and arrogant. "We're on our way, 15 of us. Get the master bedroom ready." In that moment, my paradise turned into a battlefield. They poured into my house like they owned it, leaving beer cans and wet towels on my marble floors. But when I saw my late daughter's ring missing, I knew this was no family visit. What happened next brought police cars to my driveway and left everyone stunned. I had been in my new villa for less than a week when the phone rang. The place still smelled faintly of fresh paint and new wood polish. Boxes were stacked in corners like silent witnesses, waiting for me to give them a place. I had set down a crystal glass I had just unwrapped and was standing by the tall window, letting the Pacific breeze carry the salt air across my face. For the first time in 40 years of grinding work, I thought I could finally breathe. Then my phone buzzed. The name on the screen froze me. Tyler Brooks, my late daughter's husband. We had not spoken much in months, and when we did, it was never without some request attached. I picked up anyway, out of habit more than desire. His voice blasted into my ear without even a hello. "We're on the way, Walt. 15 of us. We'll be there in half an hour. Beds, towels, food, the master bedroom ready for Savannah. Don't keep us waiting." I stood motionless, staring at the endless blue horizon. The words tumbled around in my mind. 15. 3 weeks. My master bedroom. He had said it like it was already his. "Tyler, wait." I tried to steady my voice. "I just moved in. Boxes are still everywhere. I'm not prepared for company." He laughed, a short, mocking sound. "You're retired. You've got time. You've got money. Figure it out." The arrogance in his tone pressed down on my chest like a weight. I glanced at the photo of Lauren I had already placed on the mantel, the only thing I unpacked the first night. Her smile looked back at me, gentle, steady. She had always asked me to be patient with him. But patience had become chains around my ankles. I gripped the counter so tightly my knuckles whitened. "Tyler, this isn't a good time. Maybe next month when—" He cut me off. "We're already driving." Jessica told the kids all about Grandpa's fancy beach house. "You wouldn't want to disappoint them, would you?" Grandpa, uncle, whatever word suited his story of the day. It was never about respect. It was about what I could provide. The wind carried the cry of a gull past the open patio door, but even the sea breeze felt poisoned by his words. My pulse thudded in my ears. "You can't just show up like this," I said. "Stop being dramatic," he replied. "Family helps family. You taught me that. Besides, what's the point of your millions if you don't share them with people who matter?" My throat went dry. Did I matter to him at all, or just my bank account? He didn't give me a chance to answer. "Savannah wants the master bedroom. That view is perfect for her yoga videos. 30 minutes, Walt. Have everything ready." The line went dead. I stared at the phone as if it had just delivered a death sentence. The villa around me was quiet except for the steady pulse of the ocean. My paradise, my retreat, had just been declared open season. I walked to the window again and pressed my forehead against the cool glass. The waves crashed and retreated like they had for centuries. They were indifferent to my turmoil, but I was not indifferent. My hands trembled with anger I had buried for years. 30 minutes. 15 people. My daughter gone 3 years, and all that tied me to this man was grief and obligation. I had given him more than money. I had given him trust, shelter, respect, and in return he treated me like a hotel concierge. I picked up Lauren's picture again. Her brown eyes seemed to ask me the same question I was already asking myself. How far was I willing to let this go? The sound of distant engines drifted faintly through the open window. My chest tightened. Dust would soon rise on the road that wound toward my gate. I had half an hour to decide whether I would surrender my peace or fight for it. My phone buzzed again with a text. Just 3 words. "We're close. Hurry." I set the photo back down with shaking hands and whispered to the empty room, "Not this time, Tyler. But even as I said it, I knew the real test was only minutes away. I sat down at my oak desk, the one piece of furniture I had insisted the movers place exactly where I wanted. The study faced the ocean, wide glass framing the endless blue. It should have calmed me, but tonight the view only mocked me. My hands were restless, drumming on the leather blotter. I pulled open the top drawer and stared at the thick binder I had carried through 3 different houses. Family Financial Assistance, written neatly across the spine. I flipped it open and the numbers leapt out at me like ghosts. Tuition, $45,000 spread over 2 years. That had been the first time. Tyler had convinced Lauren that his MBA would change everything. He told her it was an investment in their future. She came to me with tears in her eyes, her hand on mine. "Dad, just this once." I heard her voice even now, 3 years after cancer took her. I had wired the money and told myself it was for her happiness. The pages turned. Wedding expenses, $30,000, all in 1 month. He had promised he would cover most of it, but when the bills arrived, he said his business hit a slow patch. Lauren had begged me not to let her dream day collapse. I paid the vendors quietly, smiling through it, pretending I was proud to do it. Inside, a small voice had asked why a man who could not pay for his own wedding deserved to marry my daughter. I ignored that voice. Another line glared at me. Down payment, $60,000, because his credit score could not secure a decent mortgage. I remembered sitting in the banker's office, the young woman explaining interest rates, and Tyler grinning as if he had just won a prize. He shook my hand and called me generous. That word had become a chain around my neck. I turned to the darkest section. Medical bills, $85,000, during the worst days of Lauren's illness. That money I gave gladly, without a second thought, fighting to buy her more time. I would have sold the house I lived in then, if it could have saved her. Even in that season, Tyler found a way to make it about him. He told me the stress was hurting his job performance. I had wanted to scream at him that his wife was dying, but I swallowed the words because Lauren asked me to be patient. The binder was thick with smaller entries too. Car repairs, $5,000. Credit card bailouts, $7,000. Property tax he had forgotten to pay. Engagement ring upgrade because Savannah deserved better than what he had first given her. Each page carried a date, an amount, and a memory of me convincing myself that family meant sacrifice. The total on the last page read $312,000. I had written it in my own neat hand months ago, hoping that by recording it I could close the door on it. But the door never closed. Every time Tyler called, that number rose higher in my mind, like water filling a sinking boat. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my temples. The study was quiet except for the sound of the waves below. My late wife Margaret had once told me I was too careful with numbers. She said I made life feel like a ledger, but tonight that ledger was my only proof that I was not crazy, that I had not imagined the slow bleed of my savings, the erosion of respect, the transformation of generosity into expectation. I thought of the nights I woke at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I would outlive my retirement money. I had calculated and recalculated, only to adjust again when another of Tyler's crises landed on my doorstep. Each time he said it would be the last. Each time Lauren whispered, "Just this once." I closed my eyes and saw her smile, the way she leaned her head against my shoulder when she was a little girl. She had trusted me to protect her. I had failed at that in the end. And now the man who had drained so much from both of us was roaring down the coastal road with 15 people ready to claim my home. I looked down at the binder again, at the neat columns and careful records. It was not just money. It was years of my life, traded piece by piece. I had given away my peace 1 check at a time. The air in the study felt heavy, pressing down on me. Out beyond the glass, the sun was sliding lower, painting the water in streaks of fire. The engines on the road grew louder, closer. My 30 minutes were nearly gone. I set the binder back in the drawer, my hand lingering on it like it was both a weapon and a wound. The ledger of kindness had become a ledger of loss. And tonight, for the first time, I wondered if I would finally close it. The sound of tires crunching gravel rose in the distance, and my heart tightened. They were almost here. The first sound I heard was the low rumble of engines climbing the hill. It grew louder until it filled the quiet air that had wrapped around the villa since morning. I walked to the window in my study and looked down at the private road that wound its way from the highway to my gate. Dust lifted behind 4 cars and a pickup, moving together like a convoy. I gripped the windowsill so hard my fingers ached. They were here. By the time the first SUV rolled into the circular drive, my chest was tight. Tyler stepped out wearing sunglasses, though the sun was slipping toward late afternoon. He carried himself as if the house already belonged to him. Savannah jumped out from the passenger side, phone in hand, filming herself twirling in front of my villa. "Oh my gosh, you guys, look at this place. It is like a resort," she squealed, her voice cutting through the ocean breeze. Car doors slammed one after another. Laughter spilled out with the passengers. Strangers unloaded coolers, beach umbrellas, and suitcases large enough for a month. My villa, still half filled with unopened boxes, suddenly looked like a hotel lobby. I walked to the front door, my hand hovering over the knob. For a moment I thought about locking it, pretending I was not home, but I knew that would not stop them. They would ring, they would pound, they would act like they had a right. Better to meet them standing upright. Before the bell could ring, I pulled the door open. The first thing I saw was Tyler's grin, wide and smug. "Walt, what's up, old man? How do you like our surprise?" Without waiting for me to answer, he brushed past me into the foyer. His sandals left dark streaks of sand on the imported stone I had chosen so carefully. Behind him came bodies in a flood. 2 men I had never seen before carried a cooler between them and set it down with a thud on my polished floor. A young woman rolled an oversized suitcase across the threshold, bumping into the wall without so much as a glance. Children's voices echoed as they darted down the hall, already shouting about the pool. I tried to speak, but my voice was drowned by the commotion. "Excuse me, could everyone please slow down?" My words vanished under Savannah's laughter. She was already in the kitchen, turning her phone toward the high-end appliances. "We are staying at my father-in-law's gorgeous beach house. Look at this view, everyone," she announced to whoever was watching her live feed. Father-in-law. Not once had Tyler ever called me Dad, but now the title suited their narrative. In the driveway, more cars pulled up, unloading like a parade. My neighbor, Pauline Green, who walked her dog on this street every evening, slowed as she passed. She looked toward me, concern in her eyes, but then lowered her gaze quickly. She must have felt it was not her place. I wished she had stayed. I wished someone else could see what was happening. Inside, the noise was unbearable. Music started from somewhere, thumping against the walls. A man I vaguely recognized from Lauren's funeral opened the sliding doors to the pool deck and whistled. "This is incredible," he said, already tossing towels across the chairs. Another woman leaned over the banister of the staircase and shouted down, "We'll take the guest room with the balcony." I stepped into the center of the foyer, raising my voice until it cracked. "This is not a hotel. I am not ready for guests." But no one stopped. No one even looked at me. Tyler reappeared from the living room, beer in hand, and clapped me on the back hard enough to make me stumble. "Relax, Walt. Family helps family. You taught me that." He said it like scripture, as though I had no right to object. I looked around. My boxes stacked neatly by the wall had been shoved aside for their coolers. Shoes littered the entry rug. Voices overlapped in every direction. I felt like a stranger standing in my own home. I thought of the ocean outside, endless and indifferent, and wished I could sink into its waves and vanish. Instead, I stood rooted to the spot, anger rising like a tide I could no longer control. And then I saw it. A boy of about 12 sprinting down the hall toward the master suite, a wet towel dragging behind him. My chest tightened. That room was mine, my last sanctuary, the place I had dreamed about during long nights at the drafting table. My haven was about to be claimed by people who treated me like a doorman. I stepped forward, blocking the hallway before the boy reached the door. My voice, low and firm, finally cut through the chaos. "Stop. That part of the house is off limits." The boy froze, wide-eyed, before turning back toward the others. The room grew quieter for a moment as eyes turned toward me. Tyler's laugh broke the silence, sharp and dismissive. "Don't be selfish, old man. We are just getting started." Oh, I could feel my pulse in my temples. My sanctuary was under siege, and I knew this was only the beginning. I planted myself firmly at the mouth of the hallway, arms folded tight across my chest. The sound of voices and laughter still swirled behind me, but in that moment all I saw was the corridor that led straight to the master suite. My room, my sanctuary. The one place in this house that was supposed to be mine alone. Savannah appeared first, her blonde hair wrapped in a towel, water dripping onto my polished floor as if she had already claimed the shower. She tugged a designer suitcase behind her, the wheels squealing on the marble. "This is perfect," she said, smiling as if she had just walked into a hotel suite. "The light is amazing for my yoga videos." She tried to brush past me. I shifted sideways and blocked her. "This room is not available," I said. My voice surprised me, harder than I had intended, but I did not step back. She blinked at me, genuinely confused, as if the word no had never been spoken to her. "Oh, come on, Walt. We talked about this. You know Savannah needs good lighting. She's building her brand." "I said no," I repeated, each word sharp and heavy. Behind her came Tyler, beer still in hand, wearing that grin I had come to hate. He put his palm on my shoulder with a casual push, like I was an obstacle in a doorway. "Move aside, old man. We drove 4 hours. We are tired. Stop making a scene." The weight of his hand made my stomach turn. It was not affectionate. It was possession. I stepped back from his touch, but I did not move from the hall. "This is my room," I said, louder this time. His grin slipped for just a second. Then he laughed, a sharp sound that carried down the hall. "You hear that, everyone? Walt is being dramatic again." Laughter echoed from the living room where the others were spreading out like a flood across my furniture. Savannah put her hand on her hip, tilting her head like she was posing for one of her photos. "Why are you being so hostile? We are family." She leaned closer, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. "Daddy Walt, don't be difficult." The name made my skin crawl. Daddy Walt. She used it like a lure, sweetened with sugar but meant to control. I could feel the pressure of their bodies behind her, more people pushing into the hallway, eager to see the commotion. The corridor grew crowded, faces appearing in the shadows, eyes curious, some smirking. The music had been turned down, and in the silence of the standoff I could hear the ocean outside, steady and unbothered. My own heartbeat was louder. I took a step forward until I was only inches from Tyler. "This is my house, my room, and you are not welcome in it." For a moment the air tightened between us. His jaw twitched. He leaned in close, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Do not forget what you owe us. After everything we have been through, after everything you took from us." I froze. The audacity of it nearly knocked the breath from me. Owe them. As if the $300,000 I had poured into their lives was a debt unpaid. As if my daughter's death had been some transaction he could charge against me forever. Behind him, Savannah sighed dramatically. "Rick, please, we just want to spend time with you. We thought you would be happy to share." She tried again to edge her suitcase past me, but I planted my feet and blocked her path with both arms stretched across the hallway. "No," I said, the word like a stone dropping into deep water. "Everyone needs to leave now." Gasps rose from the crowd behind her. For the first time that night, I had spoken clearly enough to break through their chatter. Faces shifted, some surprised, some offended. A man I did not recognize muttered, "Dude, chill out." Tyler's eyes narrowed. His hand twitched like he wanted to shove me, but he held himself back. Instead, he leaned close again. "Think carefully about what you are doing. Some decisions you cannot undo." The words hung in the air like smoke. He was threatening me in my own house, in the hall that led to the only room I had dreamed about for years. My pulse pounded in my ears. I tightened my fists, every muscle tense. Savannah pressed her lips together, her blue eyes flashing with anger now that sweetness had failed. She yanked her suitcase back and spun toward the others. "He's being unreasonable. This is ridiculous." Whispers rose, the group splitting into little knots of conversation, their voices low and tense. Tyler stayed in front of me, his grin gone, his face dark. I felt the picture of Lauren on my nightstand calling to me from behind the door. Her smile, her gentle eyes, the one thing I had unpacked first to make this place home. If they entered that room, if they touched that space, it would be more than intrusion. It would be desecration. I straightened my shoulders and met his stare without blinking. "This room is mine," I said again, my voice steady now, almost calm. "And I will not let you take it." For the first time I saw something flicker in his expression. Surprise, maybe even doubt. The man who had grown fat on my patience was seeing something different. The others shifted uneasily. The hall was crowded, the air thick, the silence deep enough to hear the waves outside. Then Tyler chuckled, soft but dangerous. "You will regret this, Walt." The sound of his laugh followed me like a warning, but I did not move from the door. I stood guard over my sanctuary, trembling but unbroken, as the crowd around me whispered and waited to see what would happen next. I left the hallway with my heart pounding so hard I thought it might shake the walls. My legs carried me back toward the study, each step unsteady but determined. Behind me the chatter swelled again, laughter mixed with irritation, the sound of bottles opening, shoes scuffing across my floors. I closed the study door with both hands and turned the lock until I heard the click. That small sound brought more relief than anything had in years. The room was dim. The last light of the afternoon stretched across the desk where my papers still lay. I leaned against the door for a moment, breathing, my palms damp. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. I pulled it out, my thumb hovering. Calling the police on your own family. The thought made me sick. But then I remembered Savannah's wet footprints on my marble, Tyler's hand pressing down on my shoulder, the words he had whispered about what I owed them. I dialed. The ring sounded loud in the quiet study. 911, what's your emergency? The voice was steady, professional. It steadied me, too. There are people in my home who refuse to leave, I said. My voice trembled, but I forced it through. About 15 of them. They arrived without my permission. They are taking over my property. I am the homeowner. Sir, are you in immediate danger? Not yet, I said, pressing my free hand flat on the desk to stop the shaking. But they will not leave. I have asked. They ignored me. Can you secure yourself in a safe room until officers arrive? Yes, I am in my study. The door is locked. Officers are being dispatched now. Stay on the line with me until they arrive. I swallowed hard, staring at the window where the ocean rolled endless and calm. How long? 15 to 20 minutes, she said. I nodded, though she could not see me. The voices outside the study door grew louder. A fist pounded, sharp against the wood. Walt? Tyler's voice, too cheerful, forced and fake. Come on out, let's be reasonable. I tightened my grip on the phone. Then Savannah's voice, sweet and high, dripping with performance. Daddy Walt, please don't do anything crazy. We just want to be together. The operator spoke again in my ear. Do not open the door. Stay calm. Help is coming. Their whispers followed. I could hear them discussing, plotting. One of the men said something about me bluffing, that I would not actually call the police. Another said I was overreacting, that family disputes were private matters. I closed my eyes. For 40 years I had built bridges, solved problems, kept the peace. I had spent my career designing structures that carried people safely from one side to another. And now here I was, finally realizing some bridges should never have been built at all. The pounding came again, harder this time. Open this door right now, Tyler barked. The charm was gone. His mask had slipped. My voice rose without my permission. Do not touch this door. This is my house. You were told to leave. Silence followed, then urgent whispers. I could almost see them huddled in the hallway, weighing whether to force their way in or wait. The weight of their arrogance pressed through the thin wood like smoke seeping under the crack. I thought of Lauren, her voice so soft near the end, asking me to be kind to Tyler, to remember he was hurting too. I had carried that request like a commandment carved into stone. But kindness had turned into permission, and permission had turned into chains. She had asked me to be kind, not to surrender. Tonight I finally understood the difference. The operator's calm voice filled my ear again. Sir, officers are 5 minutes out. Do you feel safe? I looked at the lock, then at the desk where the deed to the house sat in its folder. Proof that I was not imagining my right to peace. Yes, I said, quieter this time. For the first time in a long while, I do. The sound of engines grew faintly in the distance, carried up the hill. The study walls seemed to breathe with me. I placed my hand on the desk, steady now. Outside, Tyler tried once more, his voice lower, harsher. Think carefully, Walt. Some decisions you can't take back. I let the words hang, let them settle like dust. For the first time in years, I did not rush to explain myself, did not scramble to make peace. I simply waited. And then, faint but certain, came the sound I had been longing to hear. Sirens rising against the hum of the ocean. My heart slowed. Help was on its way. The sirens grew louder until they filled the evening air. I heard the shuffle of feet outside my study door, quick and nervous now. Someone hissed. He really called them, and then more hurried whispers. My hands stayed tight around the phone until the operator said, Officers are pulling into your driveway now. I unlocked the door slowly and stepped into the hallway. The group was scattered, some clustered near the living room windows pretending to look casual, others still holding half-full bottles of beer. Tyler stood closest to the front door, shoulders squared, his voice raised in command. Everyone stay calm. I will handle this. The doorbell rang. Not a polite tap, not the frantic pounding I had heard earlier, but a long, steady press that carried authority, the kind of sound that silenced a room. For a moment, no one moved. Then Tyler plastered on a smile, walked to the door, and pulled it open. 2 officers stood there, the sunset glinting off their uniforms. The older one, tall with gray at his temples, introduced himself as Sergeant O'Neill. Beside him was a younger woman with sharp eyes and steady posture, Officer Ramirez. Their presence filled the foyer in a way that Tyler's entourage never could. Good evening, Tyler began, his voice syrupy smooth. I am afraid there has been a family misunderstanding. My father-in-law here has been under some stress since moving, and O'Neill cut him off with a raised hand. His eyes shifted past Tyler and landed on me. Sir, are you the homeowner who called about trespassing? Yes, I said, stepping forward. My voice was calm, though my heart raced. I am Walter Hayes. This is my property. They arrived without invitation and refused to leave. Officer Ramirez scanned the room, her gaze sharp. Luggage piled by the stairs, beer bottles on my counters, sandy footprints on the stone floor. She looked back at me, and I saw the quiet confirmation in her eyes. She believed me. Tyler laughed nervously, gesturing toward the others. You see, they are family. We just came for a visit. No harm intended. He is overreacting. Sergeant O'Neill's voice was steady, carrying the weight of years on the job. Family status does not override property rights. The homeowner decides who stays. Those words landed like a hammer. For the first time that night, silence fell heavy across the room. People shifted uncomfortably. A woman I had never seen before picked up her purse quickly, avoiding everyone's eyes. Officer Ramirez turned back to me. Mr. Hayes, do you want these individuals removed from your property? The question hung in the air. 15 faces looked at me, some pleading, some angry. Tyler's narrowed with barely concealed rage. I thought of Lauren, of the promises I had made her, of the years I had given away piece by piece. I thought of the binder in my desk drawer, filled with numbers that told the truth of my generosity. Yes, I said clearly. I want them all to leave immediately. Savannah gasped, clutching at Tyler's arm. You cannot mean that. We are family. Doesn't that mean anything? Officer Ramirez's tone was firm but even. Ma'am, family does not grant automatic access to someone else's home. You must respect the homeowner's decision. Tyler's face flushed red. We drove 4 hours. We made arrangements. This was supposed to be a family gathering. Arrangements? O'Neill's eyebrow rose. Did you consult the owner before making these plans? Tyler opened his mouth, but no words came. His silence spoke louder than anything else. Then it is simple, O'Neill said. He addressed the group, his voice carrying authority that could not be ignored. You have 15 minutes to collect your belongings and vacate the premises. Anyone who remains after that will be subject to arrest for trespassing. The room erupted into hurried motion. People scrambled for bags, muttering under their breath. A man shoved empty beer cans into a cooler. A woman snapped at her child to put on shoes. The illusion of control Tyler had held over them cracked in an instant. I stood by the staircase, watching the scene with a strange calm. For hours I had felt like a prisoner in my own home. Now the balance had shifted. They looked like guests who had overstayed their welcome at a hotel where the manager had finally said enough. Tyler glared at me across the room, his jaw tight. You will regret this, Walt, he hissed low enough that only I could hear. But his words no longer held the same power. I looked him in the eye and said nothing. The ocean outside roared softly, steady and eternal, and for the first time all evening I felt like the house truly belonged to me. The officers remained until the last bag was carried out and the final car rolled down the drive. The sun had dropped below the horizon, leaving a soft glow over the water. Ramirez handed me a card with the report number. If they return without permission, call us immediately. This incident establishes clear trespassing. Thank you, I said, and meant it. When the door shut behind them, silence settled heavy and deep. My villa was mine again. Yet the echo of Tyler's threat lingered in the back of my mind. Some decisions you cannot undo. His words clung like smoke long after the fire had been doused. I stood in the center of my foyer, the quiet pressing in, and wondered if the battle had ended or only just begun. When the officers drove away and the last set of headlights disappeared down the coastal road, the silence inside the villa was so complete it felt unnatural. The music was gone, the shouting gone, the laughter and stomping gone. Only the sound of the ocean reached through the windows, steady and eternal. I stood in the foyer for a long time, breathing in that quiet, letting it wash over me. For the first time in hours, the house belonged to me again. But peace is a fragile thing. I had barely sat down in the kitchen with a glass of water when my phone buzzed. One alert, then another, then a flood. I picked it up and stared at the screen. Dozens of notifications stacked on top of each other. Facebook tags, Instagram mentions, text messages from numbers I barely recognized. At the top of my feed was a post from Tyler. My heart sank as I read his words. My father-in-law kicked us out tonight. We just wanted to spend time together as a family. Instead, he called the police on us like we were criminals. My late wife Lauren would be heartbroken to see what her father has become. Money changes people. Underneath, Savannah had posted a video. She was sitting in their car, mascara streaked down her cheeks, holding her phone close as her voice trembled. I do not understand how someone who once loved us could turn so cold. We drove hours to be with him. We brought friends to celebrate. We thought it would be a family reunion. Instead, he treated us like strangers. I just want to know what happened to the generous man Lauren always described. I set the phone down on the table, but it buzzed again before my hand lifted. The comments were pouring in already. Old neighbors I had not spoken to in years, people from Lauren's college days, even colleagues from my firm. Heartbreaking. I cannot believe he would do this. So much money and no heart. Each sentence stung like a lash. I walked into the living room and looked around. Beer bottles littered the table. Wet towel prints stained the floor. My furniture was crooked from being shoved aside, and yet online I was already the villain, the cold rich man turning his back on family. The photo of Lauren on the mantel caught my eye. Her smile, frozen in that silver frame, seemed to ask me if I would let this go unanswered. I picked it up, my thumb brushing over the cracked glass. They had moved it earlier, knocked it down in their rush to claim my space. The thought of Savannah or one of her friends holding this photo without care made my chest tighten. I returned to the kitchen table and opened the laptop. More alerts filled the screen. Savannah's video had already been shared 20 times. Tyler's post had comments rolling in faster than I could read. People believed him, they believed her, and why would they not? Tears and sorrow travel faster than facts. A message blinked at the corner of the screen. It was from Margie Chen, one of Lauren's closest college friends. Walter, I saw the posts. Did you really call the police on them? I am shocked. This does not sound like you. I typed a reply slowly. Margie, it is not what they are saying. They brought 15 people to my home without permission. They refused to leave when I asked. I had no choice. Her response came quickly. I want to believe you, but it is hard to think Tyler would lie about something so serious. Please tell me this is not true. I closed the laptop with a heavy sigh. My hands were trembling again, but this time from anger. For 6 years I had paid their bills, kept them afloat, sacrificed pieces of my retirement to protect them. And now they painted me as a monster for finally saying no. The villa was quiet, but inside my head the noise was deafening. Voices from every direction telling me I was selfish, unkind, cold. The truth sat inside a binder in my study, thick with proof of what I had given. But the world did not want binders. The world wanted tears and trembling voices and posts written at midnight. I walked back to the foyer and stared at the front door, the same door they had poured through only hours earlier. The silence mocked me. They had left, but their presence still clung to every corner. And now, out there in the digital world, they had not left at all. They were multiplying. Their version of the story spreading faster than wildfire. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. Another video. Another friend. Lost to their lies. I turned it over on the counter, screen down, as if that could block it out. The ocean outside roared against the cliffs, steady and unchanging, but I knew my life was already being reshaped. The house was empty at last, yet I had never felt more surrounded. I woke before sunrise, the ocean outside still cloaked in gray mist. Sleep had been impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Savannah's tears filling the screen, Tyler's words twisting the truth into a dagger aimed at me. The villa was quiet, but in my mind the noise from their posts still echoed. I brewed coffee and carried the mug into my study. The smell of roasted beans filled the room, but it did not calm me. On the desk sat the binder I had touched so many times the night before. Family Financial Assistance. It was more than paper now. It was my defense. I opened it slowly and spread the pages across the desk, lining them up as if I were preparing blueprints. That is what I knew. Systems, measurements, order. 40 years as an engineer had trained me to find clarity in chaos. When buildings swayed or bridges cracked, I never panicked. I broke the problem into pieces and studied each one until the solution revealed itself. This was no different. The first page showed the tuition payments. I copied the numbers onto a legal pad, one by one, calculating totals as I went. Next came the wedding expenses, then the down payment on their home, then the countless bailouts that followed. As the totals grew, my pen dug deeper into the paper. $312,000. It was all here in black and white. But numbers alone would not save me. Tyler had chosen the battlefield of emotion. He had Savannah's crying face, their followers' sympathy, and the easy narrative of the selfish old man with money. I needed more than ledgers. I needed proof that reached beyond their lies. I opened my laptop and searched through old emails. There they were, messages from Tyler thanking me for covering bills, promising he would repay when his business turned around. He had written those words more than once, always with charm, always with empty assurances. I took screenshots of each one. Then I opened Facebook and scrolled back through Tyler's old posts. I found plenty of them. Pleas for help, vague messages about financial struggles, pictures of Savannah holding up signs that read grateful for support. And on the same timeline, their vacations, their expensive dinners, their photos in designer clothes. The contradictions were glaring. He had painted himself poor while using my money to live rich. I saved each image carefully, labeling the files with dates. It felt like building a case file, evidence stacked neatly into folders. I even found a video Savannah had posted just 2 months earlier, bragging about her new diamond upgrade, her voice giddy as she called Tyler the most generous husband alive. I remembered the check I had written quietly, the one that had paid for it after Tyler said she deserved more. The more I searched, the more the pieces came together. Every lie he had told was wrapped in his own words, his own images. He had created a pattern without realizing it, and I was gathering it thread by thread. By late morning, the desk was covered. Pages from my binder on one side, screenshots and printouts from social media on the other. I pushed them into neat piles and began building a timeline. It was something I had done countless times in my career. Identify the problem, arrange the evidence, trace the cause. When I finished, I had 6 years laid out in front of me. 6 years of demands, promises, and manipulations, each one supported by receipts and his own public contradictions. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my eyes. Outside, the fog had lifted, the sun glittering across the waves. For the first time since they had stormed my home, I felt a flicker of control. Tyler had built his story on emotion, but I had something stronger. I had facts. I had documentation. I poured another cup of coffee and sat down again. I needed more than a binder and screenshots. I needed professional help, a voice I trusted, someone who could tell me what these numbers and records meant in the eyes of the law. My hand shook slightly as I reached for my phone, but not from fear this time, from anticipation. I dialed the number of Miriam Cole, the attorney who had helped me with estate matters after Lauren passed. She answered on the second ring. "Walter, it has been a while." "What is going on?" I looked at the piles on my desk, the neat lines of numbers and images that told the real story. "Miriam," I said, my voice steady now, "I need advice. I think my son-in-law has crossed a line, and I have the proof." The silence on her end lasted only a moment. Then her voice came firm and clear. "Bring everything to me. We will figure this out." I set the phone down, my chest rising with a deep breath. For years I had swallowed anger, written checks, and called it love. Now I had something stronger than anger. I had evidence. I had the truth, engineered piece by piece like a structure designed to stand against any storm. The ocean roared beyond the window, but for once it did not sound indifferent. It sounded like approval. I drove into town that afternoon with the binder strapped into my passenger seat like it was a living thing. The sun was bright over the Pacific, but my mind was darker than the water. When I pulled up outside Miriam Cole's office, my stomach tightened. She had been kind to me after Lauren died, guiding me through papers and trusts when my head could barely hold a thought. Now I was back, not as a grieving father, but as a man under attack. Miriam met me in her conference room, a space lined with shelves of law books and family photos. She studied me with those sharp eyes of hers, waiting as I spread the binder and the stack of printouts across the polished table. I walked her through it, page by page, receipt by receipt, showing her the tuition wires, the down payment, the endless bailouts, the screenshots of Tyler's posts that contradicted every claim he had made. She did not interrupt, only asked precise questions, her pen scratching notes as I spoke. When I finished, she leaned back, tapping her pen on the table. "Walter, you have something most people in your situation do not. Documentation. Years of it. This is more than a family dispute. These records show a clear pattern of exploitation, and combined with his public lies, you also have grounds for defamation." Her words settled over me like a heavy blanket. exploitation, defamation, legal terms that gave structure to the chaos of the past week. "What do we do?" I asked. "We file," she said simply. "Debt recovery, unjust enrichment, and a defamation claim. And at the same time, you must reclaim your narrative. Social media is his weapon, but truth can be yours. Not in angry rants, not in defensive posts, in facts. Clean, simple, undeniable facts." That night, back at the villa, I sat at my desk again with the ocean humming in the background. My laptop glowed in the dim room. I crafted a statement as if I were drafting blueprints. Short sentences, steady language, no anger. I attached a timeline of the payments, with amounts blacked out except for the totals. I added screenshots of Tyler's thank you messages and Savannah's bragging posts about her diamond ring and vacations. When I read it through one last time, it felt cold but solid, like concrete setting. I clicked post. Within minutes, comments began to roll in. Some were shocked, some were apologetic. I had no idea. "This changes everything. That is a lot of money to give." Others asked questions, demanding Tyler explain why he had left those details out. By midnight, my statement had been shared dozens of times, not with pity but with scrutiny. The tide was shifting. The next morning, Miriam called me. "It worked," she said. "He overplayed his hand. Your evidence is too strong. Now we move to the next phase. I am filing the suit this morning. He will be served within 48 hours. I thanked her and hung up, but my phone buzzed again almost immediately. This time it was an email from the Homeowners Association. They had security cameras at the gate. Did I want the footage of Tyler and his crew forcing their way past without my permission? I typed yes before I had even finished reading. That afternoon, Pauline Green knocked on my door, her little terrier tugging on the leash at her side. She held out a Tupperware of banana bread. "I saw everything the other night," she said softly. "If you need a witness, I will tell the truth." I nearly choked up right there in the doorway. After days of feeling alone, her words felt like a hand steadying me. I promised I would let her know when the time came. Back inside, I added the footage from the HOA and my neighbor's statement to the growing pile on my desk. Each piece was another beam strengthening the structure of my defense. For years, I had been the problem solver for everyone else. Now I was solving the problem of my own survival. That evening, my phone lit up again, this time with a new message from Tyler. "No charm, no pretense. Take down your lies or you will regret this. Last warning." I stared at the screen and felt no fear. Instead, I saved the message, labeled it, and added it to the folder. Another brick in the wall I was building. The waves crashed outside, steady as always. For once, I felt steady too. The counteroffensive had begun, not with anger, but with evidence. Not with shouts, but with truth laid out methodically. I had built a career on structures meant to withstand storms. Now I was building one more, this time around myself. And when the next storm came, I intended to stand firm. The morning after Miriam filed the first papers, I woke to the sound of gulls crying outside the balcony. The villa was quiet, but my mind was restless. I poured coffee and walked through the house, straightening the furniture they had shoved aside, collecting the last traces of their invasion. It felt like clearing a crime scene. Every footprint, every smudge, reminded me of how close I had come to losing control of my own home. The doorbell rang just after 8. I hesitated before answering. On the porch stood Pauline Green, my neighbor with the terrier. She held a covered dish in her hands. "Banana bread," she said with a small smile. Her eyes searched mine, soft but firm. "Walter, I want you to know I saw everything that night. I saw them push past you like you were a servant. If you need a witness, I am willing to speak." Her words struck me harder than I expected. For days I had felt isolated, accused, painted as the villain. Hearing someone say they had seen the truth gave me a surge of relief that nearly buckled my knees. I thanked her, took the bread, and promised I would let her know if Miriam needed her statement. She nodded, gave my arm a gentle squeeze, and walked back down the path. When I returned inside, I carried the bread to the kitchen, set it on the counter, and found my eyes drifting toward the master bedroom. Something gnawed at me. The night of the invasion had been a blur, but certain images were sharp. Savannah's wet hair wrapped in a towel, her rolling suitcase squealing across the marble. The way she had pushed against me, insisting on the master bedroom. I opened the door and stepped inside. The bed was neatly made, the linen smooth, but something felt off. I walked to the dresser where I had placed a small wooden box. It had belonged to Lauren. Inside, she had kept the ring her mother left her, a delicate band with a sapphire stone. After Lauren died, I had placed it in the box and kept it close, a reminder of the women I had loved and lost. My hand trembled as I lifted the lid. The box was empty. For a moment, the room tilted around me. My breath caught in my throat. I pulled open the drawers, searched the top, even checked the floor in case it had fallen. Nothing. The ring was gone. Anger surged through me like fire. That piece was not just jewelry. It was memory. It was love. It was a connection to Lauren that I thought could never be touched. And now it had vanished during the hours when they had treated my home like a resort. I stormed back to the study, heart pounding, and opened my laptop. I clicked through Savannah's social media, scrolling past her endless parade of selfies and videos, and then I stopped cold. There she was, standing against the sunset the night they left, holding her phone up high. On her hand gleamed a sapphire ring, catching the light. My ring, Lauren's ring. My chest tightened until it hurt. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. She had taken it, worn it proudly, flaunted it to her followers as if it had always been hers. I leaned back in my chair and pressed my hands to my face. I saved the post, downloaded the image, and added it to the growing folder of evidence. My hands shook, but my mind was steady. This was not just about money anymore. This was about theft, about respect trampled, about sacred things violated. I thought of Tyler's smug grin, his warning that I would regret calling the police. I thought of Savannah's syrupy voice calling me Daddy Walt while her hand was already in my daughter's dresser. The betrayal cut deeper than any bill or bailout ever had. That evening I called Miriam and told her what I had discovered. She was quiet at first, then said, "That changes everything. Jewelry with sentimental value is not just property. It is evidence of intent. Send me the screenshot." I did. Within minutes she confirmed it was added to the case file. Her voice carried a sharper edge now. "This strengthens your position. We are not only talking about defamation and exploitation anymore. We are talking about theft." After the call, I walked back into the master bedroom. The empty box sat on the dresser, its lid open like a wound. I touched the wood gently, whispering to the silence, "I am sorry, Lauren. I should have protected it better." The waves crashed outside, steady and relentless. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty box, until the sun dipped and shadows stretched across the room. My house was mine again, but it had been touched in ways I could not forget. The neighbors had seen. The cameras had recorded. The ring was on her hand for the world to witness. Piece by piece, their lies were unraveling. Yet in my chest, beneath the growing determination, there was a hollow ache. Some things once broken could never be whole again. I was at the courthouse before it opened. The streets downtown were still quiet, shops with their blinds down, the smell of bread drifting from the bakery across the square. I parked and sat in my car for a moment with the binder on the seat beside me. The leather strap was worn where my hand had carried it again and again, but inside the papers were crisp, sharp, undeniable. I thought of Lauren's photo on my nightstand, the empty ring box on the dresser, and I whispered to myself, "This is for you." When the doors unlocked, I was the first one through. The clerk behind the counter looked up with polite surprise. I slid the file toward her, everything Miriam had prepared and I had gathered, neat as a blueprint. "Case filing for debt recovery and defamation," I said, my voice steady even as my hands trembled slightly. She flipped through the stack, her brow rising at the thickness. "This is exceptionally well prepared, Mr. Hayes," she said. Hearing my own name in that sterile room reminded me that I was not just a target in someone else's story. I was the homeowner, the father, the man who had kept records when no one thought I needed to. The clerk processed the payment, stamped the documents, and handed me a case number. I stared at it for a long moment. Numbers had always been my comfort, and this one felt like a shield. When I walked out into the morning air, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Back at the villa, I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee steaming beside me. The ocean glittered beyond the windows, but I barely looked at it. Tyler's post was still spreading, though slower now. I had a choice. I could stay silent and let his story harden like concrete, or I could speak again. I chose the latter. I began typing, not with anger, but with precision. I have seen many posts about our family situation. I want to share some facts. I listed the payments in order, from tuition to wedding costs, down payment to medical bills. I attached images of the wire transfers, names and dates redacted for privacy but clear enough to prove truth. I added screenshots of Tyler's promises to repay, Savannah's posts flaunting the diamond upgrade and vacations. I kept my words short, my tone measured, as if I were submitting a report. Before posting, I hesitated. Once it was out, there was no taking it back. But then I thought of Savannah's voice calling me Daddy Walt as she wore Lauren's ring on her finger. My hand did not shake when I clicked share. The response was immediate. Shock, confusion, then a wave of questions aimed not at me but at them. Why did he leave this part out? That is a lot of money. You said you were struggling, but these records say otherwise. The tide was turning. Even some who had defended them before were asking for answers. By midday, my phone buzzed with calls. Margaret Chen, who had messaged me in disappointment before, now left a voicemail filled with apology. Walter, I had no idea. Tyler never mentioned any of this. I am sorry I doubted you. Old colleagues reached out with words of support. Even the HOA president called, promising to provide the gate camera footage officially to back my case. I walked through the house, and for the first time since the invasion, I did not feel like a stranger in my own home. The air was clear, the silence was mine. Yet underneath the relief, I felt the steady hum of anticipation. Tyler would not surrender easily. His pride would not allow it. In the evening, Miriam called with an update. The judge has reviewed the filing. Because of the thorough documentation, you may get an expedited hearing. That is rare, Walter. Your preparation is paying off. I thanked her, my voice quieter than I expected. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and carried it to the deck. The sky was painted orange and purple, the waves rolling in steady rhythm. I thought of how close I had come to losing this peace, how quickly it had almost been swallowed by arrogance and entitlement. My phone buzzed again on the table beside me, a text from Tyler. You think you are clever. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. This is not over. I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. I saved the message and set the phone down without replying. His threats no longer rattled me. They were just more evidence, more weight on the side of truth. The ocean roared below, steady and unchanging. I lifted my glass toward the horizon, toward the memory of Lauren, and whispered, I am standing my ground now, and this time I will not back down. The next morning began with the same steady crash of the ocean, but my chest carried a weight that no sunrise could lift. Tyler's threats from the night before still clung to me. I poured coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my phone. More missed calls, more messages, some pleading, others hostile. I scrolled through them slowly, saving each one before deleting nothing. Every word would be kept. Around mid-morning the phone rang again. His name glowed across the screen. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to let it ring, to deny him even my silence. But another part of me, the part trained to solve problems, reached for the record button before answering. California law was clear. One-party consent was enough. My thumb tapped the screen. His voice came fast, sharp, already charged. Walter, what are you doing? You filed a lawsuit against me? Are you insane? I let him speak, saying nothing at first. His words spilled like a flood. "This is family business. You don't drag courts into this. You are humiliating us. Take it down, drop it, and we can talk like adults." Finally, I answered, my tone calm, almost detached. "Family business ended when you brought 15 people into my home without permission. Family business ended when you lied to the world about me. This is not family business anymore. This is legal business." He barked a bitter laugh. "Legal business? After everything I've done for this family, you're going to treat me like some criminal?" The words struck me with their absurdity. After everything he had done, my pen scratched notes on a pad as he spoke, the recording catching every syllable. "I never agreed to those payments being loans," he said. "You gave them willingly. You know you did. You can't just change your mind now." "You promised to repay me more than once," I said evenly. "I have your words, your messages. That matters." He grew louder, trying to smother me with noise. "You always wanted control. Money was your way to chain us. You never gave out of love. You gave to make us dependent. Everyone knows it." I did not argue. I let the silence stretch, his voice filling the space, the recorder capturing his contradictions. Then he lowered his voice, a different kind of menace slipping in. "Do you know what happens if you push this? I'll ruin you online. I'll make sure everyone sees you for the bitter old man you've become. You think people care about your receipts? People care about stories, and mine is better." I could almost hear him smiling through the line, convinced of his own power. But inside me, something shifted. He had just admitted the strategy. It was never about truth. It was about performance. And that admission, casual as it was, might be more valuable than any bank record. When the call ended, I saved the file carefully, labeling it with the date and time. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from clarity. Tyler had turned his own weapon into mine. That afternoon I called Miriam and told her what I had captured. She listened without interrupting, then said, "Send it to me, immediately." I forwarded the recording and waited, pacing the study. 10 minutes later she called back, her voice sharper now. "This is gold." He admitted he never saw the money as gifts of love. He admitted the strategy was to control the narrative online. Combined with your documentation, this shows intent. It paints a picture of manipulation, not misunderstanding. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. "So what do? We keep pressing. This increases our leverage. He will realize the ground beneath him is weaker than he thought. Do not respond to him directly anymore. Save every word, every message. Let me handle the rest." When the call ended, I walked to the balcony. The ocean stretched wide and unbothered, the waves crashing steady as a heartbeat. For weeks I had felt trapped, forced to defend myself against lies that spread faster than I could catch them. But now the balance was shifting. I had more than paper. I had his own voice, his own arrogance, captured and preserved. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, I thought of Lauren again, her gentle reminder to be kind. I had tried, for longer than anyone could ask, but kindness without boundaries was not love. It was surrender. Tonight, I felt something I had not felt in years. Not victory, not even relief. Something quieter, steadier, control. I poured a glass of water, sat back at my desk, and reviewed the timeline one more time. Each page, each screenshot, each recording was another beam strengthening the structure around me. Tyler believed stories were stronger than facts, but I had built a life on facts. And now, piece by piece, I was building the case that would bring his story down. The morning of the hearing, I rose before dawn. I put on a navy suit that had hung untouched in my closet since Lauren's funeral. My hands smoothed the jacket as if the fabric itself could give me strength. I poured coffee but barely touched it. My stomach was too tight. The drive into town was silent except for the hum of the engine and the steady beat of my own pulse. The binder sat on the seat beside me, heavier than ever, filled now with not only receipts but also screenshots, witness statements, camera footage, and the recording of Tyler's threats. At the courthouse, the halls smelled faintly of paper and polish. Miriam met me by the elevators, her briefcase in hand. She gave me a short nod, professional but steady. "We are ready," she said. We walked together toward the courtroom where the judge would hear our case. My shoes echoed against the marble, each step a reminder that I was not just a man defending his pride. I was defending years of sacrifice and the truth of my own story. Inside, the room was colder than I expected. Wooden benches, a raised bench for the judge, the flags at each side. Across the aisle sat Tyler, slouched in a chair beside a young attorney who looked barely out of law school. Tyler's swagger was gone. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him, though his eyes still carried defiance. Savannah was not beside him. Perhaps even she knew better than to sit here. When Judge Alvarez entered, the room rose. Her presence filled the chamber, calm but commanding. We sat again, and the proceedings began. Miriam opened with a timeline, laying out the payments in chronological order. She placed copies of bank transfers before the judge, highlighted texts where Tyler had promised repayment, photographs of vacations taken in the same weeks he claimed hardship. "Over $300,000 in 6 years, she said firmly. Not gifts given freely, but a systematic exploitation of a grieving father who was told time and again it was just this once. Tyler's attorney stood to reply. His voice was nervous, but he tried to sound confident. "Your Honor, these were family gifts given during times of grief and transition. There was never an agreement for repayment. Mr. Hayes is attempting to rewrite history now that he is bitter." Judge Alvarez's brow lifted as she flipped through the documents. She paused on one of the text messages and read it aloud. "I will pay you back when the business stabilizes." She looked up. "Counselor, this is not the language of a gift. This is a promise." Miriam followed with the recording. Tyler's voice filled the courtroom, dismissive and smug. "You think people care about receipts? People care about stories, and mine is better." The sound of his arrogance hung in the air like smoke. I saw the judge's jaw tighten. Then came the photograph of Savannah wearing Lauren's sapphire ring. I felt my chest ache as Miriam explained how it had disappeared from my dresser and appeared days later on her hand online. Tyler's lawyer objected weakly, but the judge overruled. "Theft of sentimental property is serious," she said, her tone hard. For nearly 2 hours the evidence stacked higher. The gate camera footage showing them entering without my presence. My neighbor Pauline's written statement describing how she saw them shove past me. Screenshots of Savannah bragging about luxury purchases, while Tyler posted pleas for sympathy. Every piece built a wall higher and stronger than anything I could have spoken aloud. When it was Tyler's turn to speak, he shifted in his chair, his voice rising. "I was grieving too. Lauren was my wife. We were family. He promised us he would always be there. He cannot take it back now. He owes us that much." The judge's eyes were sharp. "Mr. Brooks, what you call promises of love look to this court like promises of repayment. What you call family gatherings look like trespass, and what you call misunderstanding looks like deliberate manipulation." Silence followed. I sat still, my hands folded tight in my lap, my heart pounding against my ribs. Finally, the judge leaned forward. "I will not drag this through months of trial. The evidence is overwhelming. I expect counsel to work out a settlement immediately. Restitution will be paid in structured installments. The ring will be returned. A formal retraction of defamatory statements will be issued. If these conditions are not met within 30 days, the court will enforce judgment through seizure of assets." The gavel struck once, sharp and final. Tyler's head dropped into his hands. His lawyer whispered frantically in his ear. I remained seated, still as stone. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I simply breathed, each inhale pulling in more air than I had thought my lungs could hold. When the judge left the bench, Miriam touched my arm lightly. "You did it," she whispered. I shook my head. "We did it." Oh, as we walked out into the sunlight, the courthouse steps wide before me, I felt something I had not felt in years. Not triumph, not even relief. Something steadier, like standing on solid ground after too long at sea. The reckoning had come, and the truth had been heard. Yet as the breeze lifted off the bay, I knew this was not the end. It was only the turning of a page. The days after the hearing passed in a strange quiet. I no longer woke to dread the notifications on my phone, though I still checked it with caution. Miriam called me the following week with the terms finalized. Tyler had agreed to structured payments over 3 years, secured by a lien on his car and whatever savings he could prove. Savannah had returned the ring through the court clerk, sealed in an envelope with her signature across it. And both of them were required to post a public retraction on every platform where they had spread their lies. I picked up the envelope at Miriam's office. She handed it to me with both hands, as if it carried more than a piece of jewelry. Back home, I opened it carefully. The sapphire gleamed under the lamplight, familiar and steady. I placed it back into the wooden box on my dresser, where it had belonged. My reflection in the mirror behind it was older than I wanted to admit, but for once I did not look defeated. The retractions appeared online 2 days later. Short, clipped statements written by lawyers rather than hearts. Our previous posts about Walter Hayes contained incomplete and inaccurate information. We retract those statements and apologize for any harm caused. The words lacked sincerity, but they were there for the world to see. Underneath, comments poured in again. Some were sympathetic, some still skeptical, but many simply said, "At least he got justice." I did not reply to any of them. For the first time in years, I felt no need to explain myself. Savannah's social media presence grew quieter. The endless stream of videos slowed, her tone more careful when she did post. Tyler disappeared almost entirely, his accounts dormant except for the required retractions. Miriam told me privately that missing even one payment would allow us to seize assets. She urged me to be patient, to let the law do its work. In the villa, I set new boundaries for myself. I rehung the photo of Lauren, this time higher on the wall where it could not be touched by careless hands. I moved the binder from my desk into a locked cabinet, not to hide it, but to remind myself I no longer needed to stare at it every day. My mornings became slower again. Coffee on the deck, the ocean steady below. A week later, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Tyler. His voice was thinner than I remembered, stripped of the arrogance. "Walter, I wanted to say I am sorry. For the posts, for everything. I know it does not change much, but I needed to say it." I listened, my hand tightening around the phone. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to forgive. Instead, I said quietly, "You have a court order now. Honor it. That will speak louder than words." He was silent for a long time before the line went dead. Savannah sent a message not long after. "I know you hate me. I know I crossed lines I should not have. I am ashamed of the ring. I hope one day you can forgive me." I did not reply. Some wounds are acknowledged best by silence. What surprised me most were the messages from people I had not expected. Old friends, neighbors, even colleagues reached out. They told me they had seen the retractions, that they admired the way I had handled it with facts rather than fury. Pauline stopped by again with her terrier, and we talked on the porch while the dog tugged at its leash. "People know the truth now," she said. "You stood up when it mattered." That night I wrote a short statement of my own. "This matter has been resolved through proper channels. I am grateful for the support shown by those who chose to see the truth. I believe generosity requires boundaries, and I will honor both going forward." I posted it quietly and shut the laptop. The villa felt different afterward. Not just a house, but a home defended and reclaimed. The silence no longer mocked me. It comforted me. I knew there would be more challenges ahead. Tyler's payments might falter, gossip might return, old wounds might ache, but the boundaries were clear now. I had drawn them with my voice, my records, and the law. As the sun dipped into the horizon, I sat on the deck with a glass of wine. The ocean roared steady below. the sky painted in streaks of orange and purple. I lifted the glass toward Lauren's photo in the window. "I learned the difference," I whispered. "Kindness is not surrender, it is choice." The waves crashed again, strong and endless, and for the first time in a long time I felt my life was my own. The weeks that followed were strangely calm. The villa finally felt like mine. I unpacked the last of the boxes that had sat untouched since moving day. I hung paintings I had collected over the years, filled the bookshelves with volumes I had not opened in decades, and placed fresh flowers on the mantel where Lauren's photo rested. For the first time I walked through the rooms without feeling like a guest in my own house. Each corner was quiet, each surface mine. Neighbors began to greet me differently, too. Pauline stopped often during her evening walks, her terrier tugging eagerly at its leash. Others I barely knew before nodded with more warmth, as if they understood something about me now. One afternoon, the Homeowners Association invited me to speak at a gathering about estate boundaries and protecting property rights. I stood in the clubhouse surrounded by retirees, couples, and young families, and I told them my story in broad strokes. I explained how generosity had turned into expectation, how family ties had been twisted into chains. Faces around the room nodded in recognition, some in sympathy, others with their own unspoken wounds. Even my nephew David reached out. He had been quiet during the storm, not wanting to take sides. But one evening he called. "Uncle Walter, I saw what happened. I always wondered how Tyler managed that lifestyle. I'm glad you stood up for yourself. I'd love to visit if the timing is right." His words lifted something inside me. We chose a weekend together, and for the first time in years the thought of company did not fill me with dread, because this time it was asked, not demanded. I settled into routines I had dreamed of for decades. Morning coffee on the deck while the horizon shifted from gray to gold. Afternoons spent reading by the wide windows. Evening walks along the shoreline, the waves washing over my shoes. The villa, once invaded and desecrated, had become sanctuary again. But peace is never perfect. One late afternoon I opened the mailbox at the end of the drive. Inside lay an envelope with my name typed neatly across the front. I carried it back to the house, sat at the kitchen table, and slid it open carefully. Inside was the first restitution payment from Tyler, a certified check as the court had ordered. But the amount was short by several $100s. Attached was a slip of paper with only a scrawled note. "We'll make it up next month." No apology, no explanation, just a promise written like a shrug. I stared at it for a long time. My chest tightened with the familiar weight of disappointment. They had been ordered by the court, bound by law, and still he tried to bend the terms. I took a photo of the check and the note, attached it to an email, and sent it straight to Miriam. Within minutes she replied, "Documented. Do not confront him directly. If the next payment is not correct, we move to seize assets." I ruled. I folded the note and placed it in the binder. Another entry, another piece of evidence. It did not sting the way it once would have. It only confirmed what I already knew. Some people do not change overnight. Some lessons come slow, if at all. That evening I sat on the deck with a glass of wine. The sun painted the sky in deep orange, the waves rolled steady, and gulls dipped low over the surf. I held the glass toward Lauren's photo inside the window. "I am learning," I whispered. "I will not be taken again." The villa was silent around me, but the silence was not empty. It was mine, yet I could not ignore the shadow that lingered on the horizon. Tyler's voice still echoed in memory, his threats, his arrogance, his conviction that stories mattered more than truth. He had lost the first battle, but the war between us was not finished. I took another sip of wine and let the evening breeze cool my face. The ocean would keep rolling no matter what storms brewed inland. I could not control Tyler's choices, but I could control mine. I would guard my peace, defend my home, and hold my boundaries like the walls of a fortress. As the last light faded, I turned off my phone completely. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. For tonight the house was mine, the air was calm, and the waves kept their eternal rhythm. It was not perfect victory, but it was peace. Fragile, perhaps, but real. And I was ready to protect it, no matter what shadows tried to return. After all the storms, the villa finally became my sanctuary again. The court had spoken, the lies had been exposed, and the ring that carried Lauren's memory was back where it belonged. I learned that kindness without boundaries is not love, it is surrender. Standing up for myself did not destroy my family. It revealed who truly valued me, and who only valued my money. The ocean keeps rolling, steady and calm, and so will I. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family? Share your thoughts below. I would love to hear your stories.